everybody, and welcome back to Movie Files. Elliot here to talk about the second half of Stranger Things Season 3, Chapters 5 through 8. As I did over the weekend, I talked about Chapters 1 through 4, so definitely check out that video when you're done watching this. But this video is focusing on the back half of the season, talking about the finale, talking about the post-credit scene, talking about the what I hope to see in the future season if we get those, so definitely stick around and see my thoughts on that. But before I get into all that, I want to welcome all those that are new to Movie Files. If you haven't already, definitely do us a favor and hit that subscribe button, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of our TV reviews, trailer reactions, movie reviews, unboxing videos, and giveaways. So definitely subscribe to our channel. And also, with this being such a very interesting season of Stranger Things, I want to know what you all thought with the first half, the second half, the post-credit scenes, and everything in between. So definitely comment below on this video so we can build some dialogue around that. So with that being out of the way, let's get into the spoiler-filled discussion of chapters 5 through 8 of Stranger Things Season 3. Following the same format idea for chapters 1 through 4 review, I'm just going to briefly go over the episodes of 5 through 8. And also, like I said at the beginning, I want to touch on the post-credit scenes, the ending, ranking this particular season. So let's get into this. We get chapter 5, which was titled The Frayed. Some interesting moments about this episode. I like that it followed up one of my favorite episodes of the season thus far, which was chapter 4. But in this chapter, we see Dustin and crew, Dustin, Steve, Robin, and Erica finally getting off the elevator, which they spent so much time in that mall in that elevator. But we see them escape. We get Hop and Joyce. They do their research, are finding out that that Starcourt has multiple properties in the east side of Hawkins. They come across this one home where they find that there's the underground laboratory. This is where we get Alexi's character. They take him, but in the midst of all that, we run into our evil Russian guy that we saw in episode 1 and kind of sprinkled in throughout the season. When we see him again, I'm like, oh, they're kind of doing an homage and paying nod to the Terminator, which is a phenomenal franchise, in particular T2. But it wasn't until he started talking and the way he started moving where I'm like, oh no, this is their version of the Terminator in the Stranger Things universe. And I love that nod. I love that character. Him and Hop going back and forth in this episode, and in the season so far was great. We see that the kids and the older adults, or the teenagers, I should say, with Nancy, Jonathan, and the crew finally get back together because Nancy calls Jonathan after they have their little fight that they want to know where the kids are because she figures out that Will's not safe, and they finally pack back together. We see the crew coming up with, their theories that the mind, the creature from season 2 is back, and now he's, feeding on the town, and they refer to as he's fraying with the people of the town, and how things are kind of working out. So they visit the hospital to go see what Mrs. Driscoll's been up to, because she had mentioned in a couple episodes that she needs to go back. So they theorize they need to go back to see if they can lure her to where she needs to go so they can find this creature. But in the midst of all that, we see that the things are not turning out well at the hospital. Another homage to another great franchise during that time, which was Halloween 2. There was some great moments within that sequence at the hospital. Again, a nod to Halloween, one of my Halloween 2, not as great as the original, but a really good horror film in its own right. But I love the homage there. But we see the kind of scenes play out. Very dark moment. We see, I believe his name was Tom, Heather's dad, kind of attacking, and the one jerk journalist, I can't think of the actor's name, but we see them attacking Nancy and Jonathan. That was a really, like I said, really interesting, very dark, a lot of things at stake. I didn't know if Jonathan was going to go out, if Nancy was going to go out that time. Again, this season so far is very dark and has some moments where you couldn't predict where they were going to go, but we see what happens. They kind of win the fight. They essentially kill those guys, which, I mean, you can't blame them. You can't just knock them out because the Fray has their minds controlled. So we see that they, they're killed, but then we see their bodies kind of disintegrate and go create the monster that we see in the basement. And he's just getting bigger and bigger as the season goes by. And we kind of get that moment. I love that scene because that's where we get Elle, again, just being really awesome. And I love how they built those moments. I thought the season was very epic and scale, especially when it came to those kind of action moments. I really appreciate that because, again, this particular episode was very energetic, reminded me of an 80s film that had some not only great action moments, but some great comedy. So, again, I thought episode 5 was a great follow-up to my favorite episode so far, which was episode 4, or chapter 4. But I thought chapter 5, The Fray, was really solid. So going on to chapter 6, where we see kind of the aftermath of everything and the incident that we get at the hospital, where we see again Elle just being a beast and just throwing the monster out of the hospital, and we see it going through the sewage. But this episode was a little bit more lighthearted. I felt that this wasn't a bad episode per se, but it was definitely one of those filler episodes. If you watch enough TV, there's one or two, especially when you have something of like 9 to 10 episodes or 8 episodes or more, you get one episode that's going to be a little bit of fluff or a little bit of a filler episode where they're kind of dumping some information. As an audience, we know what's going on, but this is where the crew is trying to figure out what's going on. So we already kind of know the pieces and where people are and all that, but we're now watching it on screen, which can be at times a little frustrating because again, you're like, we as an audience know what's going on, but then you gotta put yourself in the cast members' position where they're not up to speed with it. But I mean, obviously they know the script, but in that particular time, the storyline, they don't know where the kids are, Joyce and Harper. The kids don't know where Joyce and Harper are at times, so I get it. But this episode was a little bit, like I said, a little bit lighthearted. We get the Robin, Dustin, and Steve and all of them, and Erica, they go their ways, but then Robin and Steve get kidnapped, and Erica and Dustin have their kind of comedic moments about My Little Pony and all that. We see again, like I had mentioned, it was the best probably. There were 2 good scenes I liked in this, and this is one of them where we see Elle throwing out the monster out of the window, and we get the interrogation with Steve and Robin, which was again kind of the comedic fluff of the episode. But definitely the best part was when we see Elle going into Billy's mind, which again was a trap. They realized, excuse me, they realized it was a trap, but we see her go into his memories of his mom and kind of giving the Billy character a little bit of getting into his mind and seeing that he's a character with some interesting backstory with his mom and seeing why he is the way he is. So that was a good moment. But then we see that was a trap and that he grabs her and tries to, I believe that is Billy trying to talk to Elle, but at the same time we know that the phrase in his mind. But that was probably the best parts of the episode. We see Dustin and Erica rescuing Steve and Robin, and then it definitely gets dark again. There were some cool moments. I like the Elle versus the monster scene. I like the moments that we get with Billy and Elle, but then also I like the way that the episode ended, which just shows that the people that are afraid are now kind of dissolving and then becoming this bigger creation of the monster. So I really thought that was a nice way to end the episode because it was mostly a funny, more lighthearted type of episode. Again, nothing wrong with that, but it definitely kind of turned for a darker side towards the end. So I really like the way that the chapter 6 ended. Going into chapter 7, which was titled The Bite, we see the festival at Hawkins and we see the festivities and everything going on, but we also see in the background that the creature's slowly approaching and has gotten huge at this point. I believe they said over 30 feet. We get our Avengers style moment when the creature's at Hops in Elle's cabin. We see the creature attacking them, but we get, like I said before that, we see like our favorite shot that we gotten so far in the first 2 seasons, where we get kind of a tracking shot with all of our characters getting ready for war. I love that moment. But we see Elle trying to hold off the monster, but it does eventually wound her, and as it's titled The Bite, it bites her, and we kind of see what that does later in the episode, and she's wounded at that point. They take her to the store, they fix her up, and in the meantime, we see Max and Lucas kind of getting back together. We see, Will getting back in the fray, and we see Mike and Elle having their conversation, but at the same time, when they're doing that, when they're, she's losing blood, we see that the blood is now kind of created into the monster, which is hitting towards that bite isn't going to affect her later in the episode, and we see Billy finding that blood. But in the meantime, we get Dustin, Erica, and Robin and Steve. They leave the facilities, but they're being chased by the Russians. They go into Back to the Future, which has a lot of homage in this particular season. Again, 1985, a big year for one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Back to the Future, and it has a lot of nods within this season, like the plutonium and all that stuff. But we get Steve and Robin. They're drugged up, and they're kind of being annoying at that point. But we get a really cool moment, which I thought was cool, of the season, which, again, if you watch my previous review, I love the Robin character. I did not know that she was the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. As I was watching the season, I was telling Morgan she looks like someone, but it wasn't until I was done with this season that I find out who her parents were. She's such a great performer, and I love her in this season. And then we get a really nice moment, a very intimate moment, because so far in the season, there hasn't been too many character-filled moments or character arcs per se, but we get a moment where Robin tells Steve that she is not into him. She's actually into another lady, Tammy Thompson, I believe her name was. So that was a a nice little moment, and again, it kind of shows different, a diverse cast, and kind of the writers kind of talking to a different audience, you know. So I really like that the character Robin is, you know, into women and not necessarily into Steve. I like that kind of that switcheroo. But we get all that, and then we see, you know, they're continuing to be chased by the Russians, Dustin and Steve and Erica and Robin. But then we see the Magneto moment by Elle. She saves them by flipping over the car. Really cool moment. But in doing so, we see that bite is really affecting her. Hop and Joyce finally make their way back in town, you know, when they're dealing with Alexei and Murray trying to decode everything. So we see that they go back in town. They go to the funeral, I would say a funeral because Alexei gets shot and he dies. We get the Terminator moment where they fight. It was a really solid episode, honestly. Again, episode 6 to me was an okay episode, but episode 7 definitely picks up the pieces and kind of really picks up things again. A really solid episode. I really enjoyed it. Again, we get our cast back together for the first time. We really get some really interesting moments and some really powerful moments in this episode in regards to the action and the, you know, quiet felt moments and the character moments that we get with, like, the character Robin. So I really enjoyed that episode. So on to the finale, which was titled The Battle of Starcourt. We get everything. We see, you know, Elle takes the bite out of her leg. We see that you know, again, everyone's back together, which I love. Jim, Murray, Joyce go to the underground base where they get with the kids. You know, we come up with a plan that we're going to go to the base. Dustin's going to help out by going to Cerebral with Steve and Robin and Erica. And then we got the kids going to go to Murray's base, which we know that wasn't going to work out. We know they weren't going to be sidelined. They get trapped in the mall because of Billy. And I like all that we had going on there. We see Susie for the first time, which was such a funny and comedic moment where they're singing Never Ending Story, and everyone's just like, what the hell is going on? We got to save the world. But I really love that moment. Again, within the fight at the mall, we get some really good action sequences. We see the creature is just so huge at this point. You know, we see everything kind of play out and just kind of wrapping up this particular episode. Again, it was from start to finish, a very entertaining episode. But in the end of the day, kind of how the episode ends, you know, we see some characters die. We see Billy go out. Which was sad. Again, the previous episode, we got Alexei that went out, but Billy sacrifices himself. Again, I thought it was a very interesting play because if you watch my review from chapters 1 through 4, I didn't know how I was going to react to Billy being the ultimate villain because he wasn't a good guy in season 2, and he's definitely not a good guy in season 3 with flirting with Mike's mom and doing all that stuff. So it was interesting to see how they were going to play that out, and I think it came full circle for Billy, and I think it played out at the end of the day, him sacrificing himself to save Elle. You know, Elle's able to get to him by, you know, reminding him of his mom, which I thought was a sweet moment. So he dies, and it was heartfelt because even though we didn't get that much with Billy and Max, and Billy as just a regular person other than episode 1 or chapter 1, it was still a sad moment. You know, Max, that's her stepbrother. They share time together. Again, we haven't had those moments on screen, but I thought the performances did it enough to show what we had missed out off screen and kind of, you know, come together when he died. So that was a really sad moment. Again, the Lexi previous episode was sad, but then the saddest moment, the most shocking moment of the season, as we all know, we see Hop. You know, they finally get the code, they get the key. He takes out the Terminator guy. They have their final battle. That was just a cool fight, hand-to-hand fight sequence. Joyce has to turn the key. She has her belt. She has her hand on the key, and Hop just gives her a look like, you got to do it. You got to save the world. And she does that. But in the midst of that, and that's what we're going to talk about this post-credit scene, but what happens to Hopper? It's alluded that he dies because Alexei had mentioned once you turn the key on, be as far away from the machine as possible because people will turn to dust, very Avengers style. And we saw that happen, but we didn't see. If you watch enough TV, you watch enough movies, if you don't see the body of the person still alive, there's exceptions to the rule every now and then, but especially in TV, if you never see a body, that person may or may not still be alive, and we'll see what happens to Hopper. But it was still a great moment. As the season wraps up, we see that, you know, Elle is going to move in with Joyce and Will and Jonathan as they move away. I don't know where they're going, but we might, you know, allude that they're going just across town, maybe Illinois, who knows. We see that, you know, it's a really sad moment. I love that voiceover that we get with Hopper because, again, we don't get a lot of character-felt moments in this season. It's very fast-paced. Everyone's kind of spread apart, as we have come to used to in Stranger Things, but we didn't really get too many character arcs. Other than Elle, you know, as Hop's reading the letter, he says that Elle find your way, find your path. You're going to make some mistakes, learn from the mistakes, things of that nature. She gets a character arc. Again, Mike and Max, what they want to do with Elle. She has a character moment. I thought Hopper was, he's one of my favorite characters on Stranger Things outside of Elle and Mike and crew. But, Hopper, he spent most of the season being upset and being drunk and being an alcoholic. But, at the end of the day, I thought that his character came full circle when he read that letter to Elle. And it was a really sad moment seeing him go out and how the cast reacts to that, and particularly with Elle, losing her mom, losing her family, having this father figure taken away from her, and now being, into a new family, and seeing everyone saying their goodbyes, and Jonathan and Nancy, who that romance doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say it doesn't work, but we just haven't spent that much time with them other than the few little scenes we saw in season 2, and then obviously in season 3 here. But their goodbyes was least of my worries, or priority wise as far as emotions go. But they say their goodbyes. But as we wrap up this season, and kind of getting 3 months later after that, and we see Hopper's speech, which I thought was great. Now let's talk about that post-credit scene where we see the Demogorgon. First off, let me paint the picture. We go to Russia in the facility. We see these 2 Russian guards walk up to the prison cells, and they say, let's say not the American, but they take out this other Russian. They feed it to the Demogorgon, so we as our audience know the Demogorgon is still alive. But that sentence, that line prior to that scene is not the American, which opens so many gates. Is it another American? Did they take someone that we don't know of? We didn't get much of Elle's, her family, the other special kids. Is it alluding to maybe one of the kids in that bar or in that prison cell? Or, as many people are theorizing, is it Hopper? Did Hopper somehow make it out of that destruction? Did he dive and kind of make safe? Did he make cover? Or did he go into the upside down world and now he came out of the other side in Russia? Who knows? I want to know what you all thought of that post-credit scene. It was the first post-credit scene in the Stranger Things universe, and pretty much of any Netflix series I've ever seen. So very marvelous MCU type of teaser there. But I would love to know if you guys think that Hopper is dead. For me, it can go one of 2 ways. Number one, it kind of takes away all the levity and all the heartbreak that we got at the end of the season because everyone thinks that he's dead. So it would kind of suck to see him come back, just not necessarily saying that he's fine, because he might come back affected. He might have the mind flare inside him. Who knows? But I think it takes a lot of that. It sucks away those last 5 minutes. I'm so emotional. But I can see the flip side of it. This is the most popular character outside of Elle on the show. There's so many different ways you can bring him back. Again, I love Game of Thrones. They bring back Jon Snow. I read comics. Comic characters, superheroes never die. So it'll be really interesting to see what Stranger Things does. And that's getting to my point here, if they come back for season 4. As we know, Netflix has no fear of canceling shows nowadays. I doubt they'll do that, but who knows? I can definitely see them doing at least one more season of Stranger Things. I think 6 or 3 years ago when the show first premiered and it was such a big hit, the Duffer Brothers said that they see this being a 4 to 5 season arc. So they can definitely have the room to kind of grow on that. And who knows what a season 4 will bring with the gate now being closed, but we know that Demogorgon is still on Earth. Our favorite character, half of our crew is, Joyce and Elle are moving away. Elle doesn't have her powers anymore, as it alludes to. So there's so many things they can do with season 4. It'll be really interesting to see what they do. As far as wrapping up my thoughts on this season, again, I thought with it taking place on the 4th of July, it taking place in the 80s, I thought that they hit all the notes of fun, energetic, thrill-filled, scary moments. Not as scary as season 1. And season 1 is still my favorite of all 3 seasons so far, which I'll get to my ranking in a little bit. But I thought the season was great. Other than maybe episode 2 and episode 6, I thought the rest of the episodes were really great, really solid. Episode 4 and 5 are probably 2 of my favorite episodes, as well as 7 and the finale that we got with 8. So some really great television. I enjoyed it. It was a fun, worthy binge. Definitely recommend you guys check it out if you haven't already, but I assume you have if you're watching this video. But I would say as far as rankings go, I still have season 1 as my favorite. And then I would say season 3 is probably a little bit better in regards to the thrills and the action and surprises that we got versus season 2. I thought season 2 had better character, quieter moments, but I really enjoyed season 3. And I have to give season 2 another rewatch. I only see season 2 the one time through, and I've watched season 1 like 3 or 4 times already. But I definitely enjoy season 3, and it's definitely my second favorite season thus far if we get another season of Stranger Things. So there you have it. There's still some question marks. As far as cons go, before I wrap this video, I thought that they were going to touch on half the town killing themselves. They didn't really touch on that. You know, who else sacrificed their bodies to create this bigger monster? They didn't really touch on that. I really thought that they were going to touch on the other 11 characters that were hinted at season 2, but they didn't. But all in all, and there were some jokes that kind of fell apart. There were some campy moments, but I really enjoyed this season. But I would love to know what you all thought of season 3 of Stranger Things. Let me know in the comments where this ranks for you, what your theories are about Hopper, what do you want to see for season 4. Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for those that stuck around for this 20-minute video, this review. Let me know, again, your comments in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit that subscription button as well as the notification bell. Follow us on all of our social media accounts, as well as on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all those platforms, so definitely follow us. Keep an eye out for some more videos coming out pretty soon. Right now on our channel, we got our Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler review and spoiler-free review. Midsummer spoiler-free review. We got some trailer reactions coming pretty soon, so check out those videos. As always, thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.